Hello. Right, we're going to have a quick look at making some paper sculptures today. So I'm going to set up the camera so you can see what my hand's doing, and we're going to just use a sheet of paper. I've got an A3 sheet of paper I've cut in half, so it could just be a page out of your sketchbook or something along those lines. You need a pair of sharp scissors, ideally a fairly small pair of sharp scissors. And you need glue, so you can either use a Pritt stick glue or you can use white PVA paper craft glue, that kind of thing. Okay, so I'll set things up and see you there. So here we are in my amazing studio. One Pritt stick, one sheet of paper, approximately A3, one small sharp pair of scissors. Okay, so the shape that we're going to look at making, I've been playing with this morning, and this is here's one I made earlier. So I've gone for a raindrop form. The reason that I've done this form is to kind of demonstrate to you a few different ideas. So one is how we would achieve a curve in paper. So the bottom of the raindrop allows us to achieve a curve or a bowl shape. And then how we achieve the point at the top, and then the transition from one to the other. Okay, so first things first, I'm just going to roughly cut out a teardrop shape. So I'm going to cut this sheet of paper in half. So I'm just roughly cutting a rounded shape for the bottom and running up to a point. And then I want to ideally make the other side the same for this particular paper sculpture. So maybe trim a little bit off, make it a little bit nicer. So there we go. So the way that we're going to turn this flat 2D shape into a three-dimensional shape is by using something called darts. So I will do the very first one and you can see what I mean. If I cut a line towards the center of my curve, so that's a line, and then I overlap that cut, then I start to add 3 dimensions to my piece. Okay? So I could glue that one straight away and then cut another one. But because it's a repetitive shape, it's a smooth curve, I can cut all of my lines in one go. And then glue them all in one go. So with the Pritt stick, I'm going to put some glue on the edge of my paper. Now, if I put glue on this edge here, and then I overlap my paper and stick it down, when I turn it over, I find that the edge is still sticking up because I've put glue on the wrong edge. So it's really important to think about which edge you need to put the glue on. So if I put the glue on this edge and then overlap it and stick, now I end up with a smooth form because the glue is holding that edge down, okay? With the Pritt stick, I need to wait now for maybe 10 seconds, pressing firmly to make sure that my paper stays where I've bent it. Okay, on to the next one. Oh, I seem to have picked up a friend there. The really good thing about using this Pritt Stick type glue when I'm doing this is that if I make a mistake and I have glued in the wrong place, overlapped it too much or whatever, then I can peel apart a joint like this one without tearing the paper, so I'm not having to start from the beginning. So, right, I'm just going to finish off the other glue lines. So I'm going to speed this bit up and then you'll see the next bit. Okay, so now if we look at the difference between these two, we can see that the first one that I made has a much fuller curve, whereas this one that I've made at the moment looks like a flat cone. So the way that we develop the curve is that we need to do some cuts to a different point on our way into the center of this circle. So if I just cut half the distance, like so, and then overlap these, then I'm adding a fuller curve to the sculpture. So I'm going to go around and I'll glue all of those in speedy fast motion using my superpowers, and then we'll look at the next bit. Okay, so I hope you can see that this curve is now getting to be fuller. It's not a smooth curve because it's still made up of flat planes, but it's getting better, okay? Now, we have a little bit of a problem now, because if I keep taking darts as I have been doing, then this next part, which is supposed to be straight, will actually curve down the wrong direction. So I do need to do the same starting move. So I need to take a cut into my piece. I'll do it from both sides. But rather than overlapping those pieces, which would bring me down into a bit of a elephant's nose or something, I'm actually going to open out those cuts. I might actually have to cut even further in to allow it to bend. So there we go, so it's all the way in. So now if I open out those curves, I'm left with a gap. So all I need to do is cut a small piece of paper to fill that gap. So here we have the offcuts. I'm just going to cut a piece big enough to sit behind the gap that I've got, and then I'm going to glue that into place. So a bit of glue on the edges. Like that, and you can see that that fills the gap and allows us to get a curve going in the opposite direction to the first curves. Okay, so I will now go into speedy fast motion again and finish the other side and come back. Okay, so we're just looking at the finished recurve there. All I need to do now is to change another few things. It still looks a bit flat here for me, so I'm probably going to cut another dart here and then overlap it and glue it again there. In fact, I'll do that straight away. So just a short dart because I want the curve to come lower down, and that allows me to get that curve at the bottom there. So I'll just glue that up. Like that. So we can see that the form's getting a lot fuller now. These little bits, that little tag that's sticking out, I can just trim off. There we go. Definitely should be holding these for a bit longer so they don't come unstuck. But I hope you can see that we're starting to get the form. Now the final thing would just be to add a little bit of curvature to this, and I can do that just by bending and rolling the end until it comes to a point, and that gives me the point of my droplet. Now the really cool thing about this shape is that though it may not look massively like a water droplet, it does have the outline, but it gives you lots of practice at getting a smooth curve, transitioning that smooth curve into another plane. That will come in very handy for all sorts of different projects. If you're working on an animal based project, then the insides of an ear are this kind of hollow form. It would just require a little bit of squashing and gluing, and that would give you the inside of an ear. A bird's beak and the join into the head will be very like this. I'd probably make my darts deeper here. In fact, if I show you on this one where it's not quite stuck yet, I could just make that a much more pronounced line and give myself a pointy beak and then join in the bottom of a beak. If I want to add surface features, like for example, let's say that this raindrop here is turned into a bird suddenly, then I can add in surface features like an eye just by cutting strips and sticking them on, and I can give them a 3D form. So I just put glue on each end of this. And I'm sticking it down, allowing the portion where I want the eye to be to just stay up. Add a bit more glue down here to repair the bit that I tore apart. So then we start to get the form of an animal. Yeah, so from raindrop to bird, one fell swoop. So this really is a completely free form project. You can make anything from a bowl to a penguin via a raindrop. So just have fun. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.